Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for tuning in to the Business B.E.A.R podcast. It's your favorite host, Connor Norman here, the voice of Garrett County, back with everything business. What does that mean? So if you're tuning in for the first time, it's the Business Expansion, Assistance, and Retention podcast. And we do love our black bears here around Garrett County. They are fun, fluffy friends, but let's talk business. That's what we're about here. Now, what do we do on the show? We profile some of our local businesses, talk to some of our movers and shakers in economic development, and some local officials so you know what to do and what's available right here in our backyard. We've got one such guest today. We're excited. We're going to be talking to Jerry Merrick here with us from Emland. We're going to hear a lot more from him, but before we get there, a little housekeeping. Again, folks, this is a business podcast endorsed by Garrett County Business Development. Any opinions voiced by the host or the guest are their own and do not reflect that of our agencies. All right, now that we've hit the highlights, let's go into Jerry Merrick. He's the Executive Vice President and the President of Mortgage Lending over at Emland, a division of Middletown Bank. Thank you so much for coming on, Jerry. We have got an incredible individual here that is moving and shaking in our community. He's got a lot going on, and we're going to break down everything he has got happening here in Garrett County. So, Jerry, welcome to the show. How you doing today?
Connor, I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity. And speaking of moving and shaking, that is you, my friend. Ran into you in an event, and I'm like, man, how do I get on this amazing podcast? And here we are. So I'm deeply appreciative for this opportunity.
Thanks for coming on, Jerry. So I noticed you didn't bring the boat in today, so it sounds like the roads are dry enough to drive on. We've had a heck of a storm here the last couple of days, haven't we?
Yeah, that is true. I didn't bring the hip waders nor the rubber ducky, but I felt like it was time. It is pretty dry out there right now, but the rivers are rising.
I know we've had a couple of roads shut down because of the overflow of water. It's just an incredible time. Garrett County has got such wonderful weather. It makes it fun for us out here, but believe it or not, the people are happy. People are glad for it. You know, I think just about every farmer in the area is going to greet you and say, hey, we needed this rain.
I tell you what, man, spring has sprung. We are into that season, so I'm excited about that for sure.
Yes, we are. I think we're going to get a hiccup of snow the next few days. Not uncommon around here, but I think you're right. The gears are shifted. We're in spring mode. We're ready to bring in the summer, that lake time, getting out there, hiking the trails, just being in this beautiful nature. You know, we've got a great place to live, don't we?
We have an amazing place to live, absolutely. And the grass is green and sun starts to shine. Man, you'll forget about that winter blues all over again. It'll be great.
And we're going to show them some ways that you can help people that may be listening and don't live in Garrett County and want to experience what it's like to be a resident, experience what it's like to have a slice of what we like to call heaven. You know, we got Almost Heaven with West Virginia next door, and they call themselves Almost Heaven because they're right next to Garrett County, where it is absolutely the truth. So, Jerry, thanks again for coming on. Let's tell the people a little bit about yourself. Now, I know you pretty well. It's been great to just make your friendship and kind of watch how you have taken your business and expanded it here in the community. But we got to tell that story to people that are meeting you for the first time. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go into Emland and your role with Emland.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you, Connor. So my passion, my entire working career has been serving people. You know, we grew up in inner city Baltimore, and I moved to Garrett County roughly 28 years ago. And I've been a mortgage lender in Garrett County for the last 28 years now. So I developed a passion for homeownership, trying to help people buy, afford, and enjoy the home of their dreams, right? Whatever that dream may be, whether it's a single-family home, just getting started for newbies, so to speak, or if it's a second home or a move-up property. So that's been my passion over the last 27, 28 years. And man, I just love this dream of being able to help people.
It really is a great thing because so many people have come through the area. In fact, you know, I was just having a conversation with someone earlier this morning, and I said, I'm bringing in Jerry Merrick to the podcast. And he said, he like sells homes or something, right? And I said, no, close. You've been so kind of hand in hand with that industry and working so well with our local realtors and local homeowners, you know, helping create that path to homeownership in our community that it's just you're synonymous with home sales in the community. So I think that's a great thing. It speaks well to your reputation and that passion, like you said. So let's talk a little bit about, yourself. You come from Baltimore. What year did you move to Garrett County?
Moved to Garrett County in 1989
Okay.
as a junior in high school. So my folks came to Garrett County for vacation, and it was a great time. We enjoyed our time here. We went back to Baltimore from vacation, and my folks said, within the week we were moving to Garrett County. We bought a house, and I was a little surprised. That move happened quickly, and I've been here ever since. So it worked out famously for us.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So when you're making that transition into the mortgage side of things, did it start with MLend? Did you kind of start with another organization? Where was the genesis here?
I did. That's a great question. So I started with American Trust Bank, which is no longer in existence. American Trust Bank gave me an opportunity. Lady, I don't know if I can mention names on the podcast, but a lady named Mary Lou Roball was my mentor. Mary Lou hired me, gave me the opportunity to do mortgages, and gave me just such a solid foundation in understanding how to help people. She was very helpful in teaching me the way, so to speak. And it was through a myriad of mergers and acquisitions. American Trust became American Trust Bank, Keystone Financial, M&T Bank, several mergers and acquisitions. Found out, through attrition that you like who you like, but the bigger the bank got, in my perception, the further disconnected they became from the community.
Okay.
And the community for me is everything. That was paramount. I wanted to work for an institution that invests in places that they live. They live and work. Became disenchanted with kind of the bigger institutions and wanted a smaller feel, and that's when I found MLend.
Wow, that's incredible. Well, thanks for sharing that. I mean, it's kind of cool to see that growth there and, kind of the background that led you to MLend and where you started growing there. So when you moved to MLend, how many years ago was that?
This was 7 years ago, this past year. And that actually happened through a merger and acquisition in itself. So
Okay.
MLend was an independent mortgage company. I'd worked for banks prior to, and like I said, became disenfranchised with how I felt the bigger banks just felt disconnected to me. The acquisition of MLend came from a smaller community bank, Middletown Valley Bank. And we got back to a point where Middletown Valley Bank had the spirit in which I was looking for, and it really allowed us an opportunity to grow and expand. And just our production volume and how we were able to assist the community really kind of exploded during that time.
Yeah.
Frame. And so that was really an incredible timing thing that worked out in our favor.
That's awesome. And you inevitably went up through the ranks. I mean, executive vice president for the whole kit and caboodle there. I mean, and you oversee all of the mortgage lending side of things for MLend. So can you explain that process? Where did you start and how was the journey up?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, man, because that's really the part that I have the hardest time talking about, because I'm not a big advocate or patting myself on the back or anything, but my passion has always been just helping people. So we built such a tremendous foundation on that that we started taking leadership roles within the company. Because we were able to identify opportunities for people to basically have the same opportunity that I did, learn and grow, succeed, train up. And I started seeing opportunities where, I could help on a much broader scale, whereas I was just defining success by my own success. And now I want to leave a legacy of defining success by helping other people become successful.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that I just got really excited about those opportunities, and our former president, Bill Poffenbarger, he came to a crossroads in his career where he was retiring, and I met with the CEO of Middletown Valley Bank, which is they own MLend. So we're just to give you some backstory on what that looks like.
Yeah.
MLend is a wholly owned subsidiary of Middletown Valley Bank. So we didn't change the name. We're still doing business as Emland, but we're owned by Community Heritage. So you have a holding company that owns a bank that also owns a mortgage company. So I met with the CEO of the bank and the holding company, and he said, this is the opportunity for you. The opportunity for you is to teach others the way that we believe in you. We want other people to learn the way that you do things. And, that was very humbling for me because I never thought of myself as anybody that was anything special. I knew I worked hard. I knew I put in the time, I put in the energy, and I loved what I do. So it's such a passion for me that it just, it didn't seem like it was anything out of the ordinary. And then we started being recognized on national levels for the success that we were having. And I was like, gosh, we're onto something here. Like,
Yeah.
I think this is an incredible opportunity to help mentor people and anybody that has a passion in our business in real estate finance, because that's really how I look at it.
Yeah.
As we're in the real estate finance business, anybody that has a passion for this is I can coach and mentor and be a leader for an organization and see some measurable success for that. And man, I've been on the job for 10 months now, and good things are happening. Good things are happening. So
That's
I'm excited
awesome
about that.
Jerry, I think that tells a good story, not only about how successful Emland has been in our community, but the community itself. When you have that atmosphere to grow, and I think, you tell a story of a great balance where you have that support mixed in with a area where, quite honestly, the quality of life is fantastic.
I thought it was so important that the content of the character of Middletown Valley Bank and their leadership team, meaning my leadership team now, meaning that when they proposed this position, initially I was against the idea, because when you take on a position of this stature, you have to relocate, because our headquarters is in Middletown, which is 2 hours away, 2 hours, 15 minutes from here. They knew that I didn't want to sacrifice my quality of life, and that my community and my family were so important that I would pass over that position if I had to relocate. They believed so much in this community, and they thought that the outreach that we could provide was so special that they were willing to, let's do it.
That's amazing.
We will allow you to basically run a company 2 hours away, and we know that you're the person for the job. And that kind of faith, for me, just spoke volumes to the content of the character of the people that I work with, which was really amazing. I didn't mean to digress on that, but that I think was a really important thing, because I love this area so much. As you said, the quality of life that we have here, and the work-life balance is so important to me that I'm not going anywhere. So if it meant, taking a position which I was perfectly fine with, staying where I was and not having that lateral or upward mobility, I was okay with it, because I love this place. This is my home.
Absolutely. Well, and it's great they had great faith in you. They wanted you to be where you would thrive.
Yeah.
And that was here in Garrett County. So
that's a great point. I love that perspective on it too.
Good to kind of know where you come from here in Emland, and that when people talk to you about mortgages, when people talk to you about this stuff, they know we're talking to a guy that's been around the block a few times and can really guide you in the right way. And, we've seen that in the community in several ways. I think, what I really would like to hammer on is you're out there not just trying to do the best for your customers, but you're also trying to educate the community. I know you specifically, you've gone out to help with pairing people with their first homes.
Sure.
Helping out with community action in their first-time home buyers program. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, community action is near and dear to my heart. So that's for me, this is where this whole journey began. I was in the mortgage business for less than 6 months. I was working at American Trust Bank. 6 months, Mary Lou Robal took a chance on me and hired me. And my wife and I, at that time, found out that we were pregnant with our first child, my daughter, Marley. And in that 6 month window, or soon after that, after Marley was born, my wife has decided that it was in our best interest as a family that she was going to be a stay-at-home mom.
Okay.
And I was like, woohoo, this is great. We're down to one income now.
Yeah.
And we're buying a house. So this is amazing. Enter community action. So community action at that time, the housing department was run by a lovely lady by the name of Deb Swiger. You might know Deb and
Oh, yes.
just wonderful people. But Deb was always been an ally, and so for I think 10, 12, 15 years, something we were volunteering at Community Action to help with the first-time home buyer program. We were doing everything from reading credit reports to try to get people, over any sort of credit hurdles that they had, understanding where their scores were, that sort of stuff, to giving some budget advice, to giving some housing advice, knowing the difference between an appraiser and an inspector, what are good things that you should be considering as far as living expenses, saving for a rainy day. But that, I got the introduction to the program through the training, which Deb allowed me to counsel at her discretion at the classes. And it turns out I became a candidate. So when we were buying our first home, at the time, Community Action was offering a 20% down payment program. So my wife and I applied for the grant. We bought our first home with Community Action funds as a 20% down payment. I was eternally grateful to that program, so much so that I made it my life's mission to repay that debt by helping other people in the instance that I was being helped. So by serving others, I was able to be served, and that was it was such a great program, and I'm so grateful for all the commissioners' work and what they do in order to keep the program alive and thriving, not just alive, but thriving.
Yeah.
So, that was a full circle moment for me, buddy. I got to, when I tell people, I volunteer for this program, they're always like, oh, great, a busy guy like you, they don't understand. I started in the program.
Yeah.
So I was helped by the program. So I was eternally grateful for the opportunity.
Community Action has an interesting approach there where they try to, pair people with these programs, not to just help them, but to empower them to succeed on these programs, and then again come back and contribute towards them. I know I've been through that program. Believe it or not, the first time I ever met you was in one of those classes.
Yeah.
I actually remember one of the classes I had to leave early, and when I got up, it made such a disruption. Of course, that's what I'm famous for, being the loudest guy in the room. But I get up and the chair scrapes across the floor, and you're like, oh, where are you going?
I was going to say, did I call you out?
Yeah, you definitely called me out. It was funny.
I had so much fun in those classes. It's such an informal environment, but the content is really important. But I try to keep it light, and where people don't feel so stressed out, like they're with a banker, something like that.
No, I definitely enjoyed the class. I think I learned a lot, and I really encourage anyone that's out there considering buying their first home. Even if you're not directly ready, I think it's good. The credential's good for 5 years, and gives you access to those grant funds that can really help with that down payment. And we're talking numbers up to $5,000, and more depending on how you go through it and where you can be helped with your bank and in with Community Action grants that are available. But again, an incredible program, and you get to learn from some of the most knowledgeable people around, like Jerry here. So again, thank you for your work there. I think it's just an important piece to put that out there, because I don't think a lot of people knew you were doing that. It's hundreds of people that have benefited from that program. We're not talking about a small, couple dozen. A lot of people have been through that program, and they have that integral knowledge to thank for helping them be successful in their own homes. Yeah. That's a big step in anyone's life. And so thank you for being a part of, educating people on that process. I know a lot of people would be thankful if they had the chance.
No, I appreciate that. It was a passion of mine, and Dwayne Yoder had created such an amazing program there, and people through the years, as they've contributed, it is an invaluable resource in our community, and I always encourage anyone. It's usually very early in our conversation. Have you taken the class at Community Action? Because really you just have to stay there for 5 years, and it gives you an opportunity to have down payment and closing cost funds. But Anyway, thank you. I appreciate that.
No. Thanks for talking with me about it.
I now I remember you scooting your chair across the thing.
I remember that
hilarious.
moment. Well, what you said was so funny. I can't remember exactly what it was, but even I laughed pretty hard at it.
Yeah.
It was one of those things. I've always been a busy guy, so
Sure.
I was running to another meeting, and I had to leave that just early that particular time, and I was kicking myself for it because again, it was stuff I didn't want to lose out on. Yeah, not only did I have to leave, but I made a scene in the middle of it. So
That's awesome.
I'm glad that'll stick in our memory for a long time.
Yes, it will.
So let's talk a little bit more about Emlyn and dig into the process. Let's start A to Z.
Yeah.
I'm looking to buy my home in Garrett County. I love the place. I found the perfect spot. Kind of run me through the process. Should I start with a realtor before I come to you guys? Can I start with you guys? What's that look like?
That's a great question, and it really presents an opportunity to educate the consumers out there, because I'll give you the answer that even realtors they will agree with as well. You should always start any mortgage financing process with a pre-qualification at the very minimum. And what that is it's essentially a verbal conversation with a lender that says, okay, where do I stand financially? It creates a snapshot of your financial picture. It lets us know what your income is, what your assets are, what your credit scores look like. Are there any hurdles that you're going to experience? How your employment, the stability of your employment, things like that. And we've kind of modernized the process to so much so that we can do that just through a link. We would send you the link. We're always able to meet in person. But I find that as people got busier, they were less likely to want to meet in person until they kind of dialed in on this is what I'm aiming for today. So what I always share with folks is, at the very minimum, we want to do a pre-qualification, which is just a verbal conversation between you and I to develop a snapshot of your financial picture. Once we have you pre-qualified, we can take the next step, which is to send supporting financial information, such as W-2s, pay stubs, bank statements. Now it's not a verbal conversation anymore. We're actually documenting in your file, what your financial history has been. We can take that information and develop a roadmap, a financial strategy, if you will,
Okay.
to take a look at the plethora of programs that are out there, everything from government loans like 100% financing with USDA, which, by the way, is an amazing program in Garrett County. The entire county is eligible. Everything from USDA to FHA loans to just a conventional type of mortgage to VA loans. We love helping veterans. I have such a passion of helping veterans in this community. So with the information that you provide us, we can provide and design some sort of financial strategy for you to move forward.
Okay.
To be able to have a path forward to say, okay, I am confident now that based on the information that Jerry shared with me, that I can now go obtain the services of a real estate agent, which I highly recommend. And at that point, the realtor, you can shop for a home with confidence and knowing that if you stay within the budget, based on, I always talk about two numbers, Connor. There's a number by which you're comfortable with, meaning I'm comfortable with a mortgage payment of X. And then there's a number that you qualify for, right?
Yeah.
I'm always in favor of sticking with that number that I'm comfortable with, because you'll find you'll qualify typically for exponentially more than that comfort level is. So we always design a system and give you all the information so that you're not quote unquote house poor.
Yeah.
We failed. I failed if I run into you at Walmart and you say, boy, Jerry, I'm really grateful that we did this, but man, I'm having such a hard time making this mortgage payment. I wish I would have done something a little different. And then, I can reflect back and say, but we did talk about, making sure that you're comfortable in what you're doing and not what you can afford.
And I think you hit the nail on the head there. It's the comfort piece, I think, behind that. That's really nice and neat. I know if I'm going through that process, I don't know much about it. So having a company kind of help me through that process is really neat. And it sounds like you guys do that and you have a well-established system for walking somebody through that process.
Yeah, I'd like to think that we have as close to perfected the art of designing something really pertinent that people can use for a long time. I think we've done an excellent job at that.
That's awesome. It sounds like multiple methods. Some people are going to be confident with coming in person. Some people really need kind of a remote method to start that conversation, it sounds like. So that's really cool that you guys are a little dynamic in that way. That's the nature of things. As we progress in that technology becomes more handy and available, it sounds like you guys have adapted to make that accessible and more convenient for people, which is cool.
One of the things that's mandatory for us, and it will likely turn some people off, but it's important to me because it's important that I feel like I've done the best job for our clients. Is after I'm okay with doing the pre-qualification over the phone and by the link that we send you, technology, so on and so forth. Technology is great. It doesn't replace the face-to-face interaction. So one of my requirements, if you're going to work with us, is for a first-time home buyer, I require that we sit down in person after we've done the initial link. So I'm okay with saying, you know what, you're busy, I get it. You're balancing a family, your job, and so on and so forth. We're all living that right now. But one of the things that's paramount to me and our business and helping me understand that you understand is if I need that face-to-face meeting to be able to look you in the eye and say, okay, I'm confident that you understand, the responsibility of home ownership, because let's be honest, it's just not for everybody, right?
Yeah.
We have grown up with the American dream that it is to own a home. I'm not going to debunk that myth at all, but for some people, you're just not ready. So it's good to have these longer conversations in person, so that we all feel comfortable at the end of the day moving forward.
That's really good, and it's a personal touch. And eventually, you're going to have to sit down in front of somebody to have this conversation. So it's nice that that's built into the process. Yeah. All right, so let's say we've got through this process. We've done our pre-qualification. We connected with a realtor. What are the processes after that? Let's say I find the place. We made the offer. They accepted. Mm-hmm. What are the steps that come after that? Yeah.
So we've already, a lot of steps are dictated by the loan process, by the program that you choose. So.
Okay.
As an example, with an FHA loan, a government loan, if you're putting 3.5% down, it may require a few more inspections than a conventional loan. Okay. Where you're putting more money down, but they don't require all of the inspections. So it's really, the process is driven by the type of loan that you do. But historically speaking, in a general sense, we would say, okay, the offer is accepted. The next thing we're going to do is you would submit to us the real estate contract. We would review that, make sure there are things in a contract like a financing contingency, which is really important, an appraisal contingency, an inspection contingency. We never try to interfere with the realtor's job, but these are things over the last 27, 28 years that from a home buyer's perspective, we know they are they're added benefits that make sure that you're going to be protected throughout the process. So if any three of those things, one of those three things don't hit, when you move forward with the process, amazing. But if you do, you have an opportunity to stop the process in a legal way, and it helps everybody involved. So we would historically, at that point, order an appraisal to determine the value. That's done by an independent third party. It's not done by the institution anymore. So we do it on a random process, and we use local folks, which is really important to me.
Yes, absolutely.
It is, again, with home inspections and appraisers and title companies and agents, realtors in particular, we're always trying to push business locally. That's what you lose when you talk about financial tech companies, the bigger behemoths of the world, where they tell you just dial a number or hit a button to get immediate approval. First and foremost, it's nonsense. You can't give someone an approval on a mortgage in 30 seconds with no financial information. Yeah. You can create a profile and say, based on this profile, that makes sense that they should be able to afford X, and we can make you approvable for Y. However, it's all just smoke and mirrors. It's a telemarketing scam, and it is what it is.
Feels like once you get at the end of that process, they just pull up the curtain, and it's not what you wanted. It's a popsicle house,
Right, exactly. You don't know who's behind the curtain.
Exactly.
Is it the great and powerful Oz or what? But the point of that is, because we're local, we are using local agents, we're using local title companies, we're using appraisers that are local. It helps support the economy. Whereas, if you're using a fintech company, you have no idea where those folks are coming from. They're usually bidding out the cost to the lowest bidder. So they would just put out a bid to the appraiser and they accept the cheapest form. We don't do that. We appreciate the quality over the quantity, so to speak.
Yeah.
So getting back to the process, we would order an appraisal. We would order title work to determine if the property is free and clear of liens, which is important because you don't want to start in the owning process with somebody else owning your house too. That wouldn't be good.
No, not at all.
That wouldn't be good. And then once we're underwritten, meaning the underwriter will take a look at all of the information that we've submitted. It's a process. I always call it, it's kind of like a train track. You have two processes going at the same time. And I don't know why I'm doing this with my hands right now.
He's got both of his hands.
I got both of my hands.
And they look like train tracks right now.
So on one side of the train track, we call the credit approval. This is where the information that you've provided to us, the W-2s, pay stubs, bank statements, assets, those sorts of things, we are working with our underwriter to validate those things and say, okay, does this all make sense? Is this a good credit risk? Is this in the best interest for the buyer? Because it's not just whether we think it's a good credit risk. We operate from the ability to repay. It's a part of the Dodd-Frank legislation, right? We want to be good fiduciary stewards of money that we've been given or lent, borrowed, in order for you to borrow, right?
Yeah.
So we have that on one side of the train track. The other side of the train track are all of the third party, the vendors, so to speak, the appraisers and title companies and those folks. So we're running parallel with each other. So while we're working hard on this, we're allocating the resources for our vendors to do that. And as we near in closer to the end, we usually have an end date in mind based on the real estate contract. It will give us a closing date.
Yeah.
We'll order those services and then decide on a closing date, work in partnership with the agent and all of the other vendors that we just discussed. And we'll get together at closing, and that's when the magic happens, where we
awesome.
Sign documents.
Get the champagne out,
Here's
celebrate, keys.
Right. That's a big
the picture, the social media posts. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, it's good. The celebration time.
Yeah, exactly. That's the best part of it.
It is.
You talked about a couple like special loan programs. Does MLend have any specific programs or specials that they work?
Oh man, that's probably my favorite question because.
Hey folks, it's Connor Norman here. That concludes part 1 of our 2-part series with Jerry Merrick talking all about MLend. Stay tuned for part 2 and all the latest by following us at our website business.garrettcountymd.gov. You can follow us on our Garrett County Department of Business Development Facebook page. We've got a LinkedIn and a Twitter or X, whatever Elon's calling it these days. Again, part 2 of this MLend series coming up here shortly. Stay tuned and thank you for listening to the Business B.E.A.R podcast.